So the objective is that we will be having one Java program. In the object world, I will be having my Java program. In the relational world, I will be having my database table. And the name of the table that I am creating is student. Okay. So what you have to do is you have to keep ready one table in the database with the name student. And that table will be having two columns. Let's say student ID and name of the student. These two columns will be there. Now, corresponding to this database table, I will be writing one class over here, and the name of the class will be student, right? And again, in this class, I will be having two variables, student ID, student name, right? Now, what is the objective? The objective is that I will be performing CRUD operations over here. CRUD operations I will be performing through my Java program, and the effect will be seen in the database table. So for that to happen, I need to map my class student objects into database objects. Is it required or not? Tell me.
Yes, ma'am.
It
Yes,
is
ma'am.
needed. We have to convert the Java class objects into database objects. Now, for that, we are using something called as ORM, Object Relational Mapping. Okay. And keeping in mind, ORM can be implemented by multiple tools, and one such tool is Hibernate. So, the objective of today's discussion is this. And now I will open the PDF for you. This is the lab book where we are performing JPA CRUD operations. Now you understand what is CRUD
Yes, ma'am.
and you understand what is JPA. It's an API. So if it is an API and we are using it with the support of Hibernate technology, with Hibernate tool, we will be having a lot of annotations and a lot of inbuilt packages in which classes and interfaces are there. We don't have to write a lot of code. We will be writing very limited code. We will be mostly using annotations or classes and interfaces that already exist, and we will be making it possible, performing CRUD operations in the Java program and getting the changes in my database table. Okay. So step 1, 2, and 3 and 4. Just have a 30 seconds read. Four steps. Okay. Now there is different design patterns to do programming. There are different design patterns. Okay. So if you go to google.com and if you write design patterns, did I showed you this thing?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So we have different design patterns in Java. Design patterns in Java. So if you go to any of the links, you can see that various design patterns are available. Factory pattern, abstract factory pattern, singleton pattern, prototype pattern, builder pattern. Lots of patterns are there. What do you understand by programming pattern? Can anybody tell me what do you understand by programming pattern? Okay. So programming pattern is basically the methodology that you are using for doing programming. Okay, the method, the technique that you are adopting for doing the programming. For example, when we were doing that Go Shopping application, we adopted some technology, some design pattern. Same way, if you are working on any live project, your company will tell you which design pattern to follow, or your team will decide which design pattern to follow. One such design pattern is called as microservices design pattern. One such pattern is microservices design pattern. Even if you look at Netflix, that also follows microservices design pattern. So what is the advantage of microservices design pattern is you organize the whole project in small parts. Your project will be offering some services, and basically those services are also divided into smaller microservices, so that in the later stages of development, if you want to add anything, or if you want to remove anything, you want to add a new feature, or if you want to remove any feature, that scalability, scaling up or scaling down becomes very easy. It becomes very smooth if you are following microservices design pattern. Which design pattern do you know? Do you know what are monolithic temples? Can anybody tell me what are monolithic temples?
The temple which are made from one stone, one rock.
Yes, yes. One rock will be there and we will carve the whole temple out of that rock. Likewise, some projects, some softwares will be designed in such a way that they will be based on only one or a couple of classes. Is it a good idea to do like that? If I want to add something, only one class is there and whole khichdi is there within one class or two class or say three classes. We are not organizing anything. Okay, so this kind of design pattern is also not advisable. Okay, so microservices is a very good design pattern, but that doesn't mean we can apply it anywhere. So Capgemini suggested that for implementing Hibernate, you should be following the design pattern of microservices. Okay, so whenever we'll be following microservices design pattern, you see you have to create these packages. One class in the client file, client package for the entry point of the program. Then there will be a data access objects package. In this also we will keep multiple files. For this particular program, we are keeping 3 files in data access object package. Now when you will start using Spring Boot, data access object is not required. There we will be using something, repository, something else will be there. Entity, in which I will keep my entity class, and then there is a service package where I will be keeping the service class. Okay, what basically I am trying to tell you is, based on the design pattern that you are following for any project, the way of organizing the various components of the program also varies. Okay, so first step is, whenever you want to implement CRUD operations using JPA, first you create a new Java project. Then if it is not automatically coming, your this thing, meta information folder where persistence.xml file is present, if it is not coming automatically, you need to create one meta information folder and you need to add this XML file inside it, which is nothing but the file which contains your details related to the database, which URL, which ID, which database, which password you are using for connecting to the database. So if I am using this database, I need to provide my database name. So my database name is demo. Which table I am using for this class, this particular program? I am using student table, because I mentioned in the very beginning what we are going to perform. Objective is clear to everyone what we are going to perform.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so for performing this, I need this table. So I have kept it ready. Now What is the name of the table? Everything I have to supply to my Java program. Else, there is no means of the Java program to identify it to which table it has to associate itself. Okay, so it is very important to keep this persistence.xml file. It will come automatically. Once you have these jar files and everything added, this will come automatically. If it is not coming in any of your cases, then you create it. The code will be same. The XML code inside this will be same. Then you create packages. Why 4 packages? Why this data access object package is required? Why this service package is required? Because we are following microservices design pattern. Whatever design pattern you are following, you have to start working accordingly. So we will see one by one what all these packages contain. Then I told you to download the various jar files from this link and keep them ready in your system. So I hope most of you have completed this task. How many of you have done it? Can you please raise your hands? Okay, half of the students have done it. Half of the students are still remaining. So please do it. Tomorrow is Saturday and Sunday. Okay, don't keep accumulating the pending work, else things will become, they will pile up and you will start losing interest in training. So that should not happen. This month is very important. We have to complete and we have to keep your interviews in this month. So let's, be on time, be it your projects, your mock interviews, all those things. If things get delayed from your side, I told you earlier also, things will start getting delayed from my side as well. Now I have to download these jar files and then I have to add the jar files. How do we add the jar files? We discussed in JUnit also. You have to right click, you have to go to build path, and there one tab will be there for libraries, add the external jar files. When you will click on the libraries option, there will be one option appearing, add jar files. So you do that. Let me show you if you don't remember, because you people are coming after a long time. So you can go to properties also, Java build path. See, you go to libraries. So as I have already, added these jar files, my button is not active. But for you, this add external jars, this button will be active for you. For me, it is inactive because I have already added it. Any doubt in this, how to add external jar files? Then you have to click on apply and close. So your jar files will be added. Every time we are using, Hibernate, we have to use these jar files. So in every project in which you are making use of Hibernate, you have to add these external jar files. Okay? Else it will not identify some terms like what is entity manager factory, all these things, your program, your compiler won't be able to identify if you don't add these jar files. Any doubt till this point, students?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So next what you have to do is, you have to keep your database table ready. So the objective that I discussed with you, that we will be doing this in Java program, we will be doing this in database table. For this particular requirement, the query is this one. And whatever program you are implementing, as per your requirement, you create the database table in your MySQL. You know that how to create a table. Okay. And you keep one primary key as well, as per the requirements. If your program requirements are 10 columns in a table, create 10 columns. I am keeping a very small table just to make you, like I want to make you clear how to perform CRUD operations. So I am taking a very small example with very small database table. So let's keep it very simple with 2 columns only. You can see the name of the columns, student ID and name. Any doubt in the query? Okay.
Ma'am.
So let me show you the table also. See, this is my table. I have student ID and student name. That's it. Very simple table. Now we will start working on these packages. What is there in each of these packages? So I'll open my Eclipse. I have uploaded this on this thing, GitHub also. So you can see the repository name appearing. So these are the 4 packages: client, data access object, entities, and service. Okay, this is my meta INF folder. For my system, it came automatically, but I have seen some students struggling with it. It sometimes does not comes automatically, so you can create it. I will share this persistence.xml file with you. Okay, this is the file. XML code, you don't have to write it manually. Simply these things will change for your program. Rest of the code will be as it is for whatever persistence.xml file you see on the internet also. So what basically changes is, depending upon the DBMS software you are using, the driver name will change. Okay. Then this is the URL. And here is my database name. So you can see that my database name is this demo, which I have highlighted over here. Same, I have mentioned over here as well, demo. Then this is my ID and this is my password. Okay, this is just to establish connection with your Java program and your database. This persistence.xml file is called as the Hibernate configuration file. Okay, so if somebody asks you what is there in the configuration file, you have to say that configuration file is basically the persistence.xml file in which we specify the driver class, the URL, the username and password. This without having this file, it is not possible to connect to the database. Okay. Now there is one more file called as entity file. Okay. So I told you that in my Java program, we will be creating one class and I will keep the name of the class as student, and the class will be having variables like student ID and student name. Okay. Entity file. We have to create entity class. In entity file, we will keep that entity class. Now tell me, if any normal class is there, how to make that class as entity class? Do you know that? Simply, we will create a normal Java class. Let me go to entities package. Yes. Okay, this is one normal class student. Okay, how many variables this class is having? Student ID and student name. We kept it private. And getters and setters are there. Okay, how to get getters and setters, you know now. Okay, just right click, go to source and generate the getters and setters. Now, once I have done it, I have to declare my normal class, which is my normal class, Pojo, as the entity class. Okay, for this you have to use this annotation @entity. Once you use @entity annotation, this class becomes entity class. What is entity class? See, what are entity in ER diagram? Remember entity relationship diagram.
Real
What do
world,
you, yes?
real world object.
Yes, entities are real world objects for which we store information in the database. So I gave you example that entity can be a physical thing also. Entity can be conceptual thing also. Okay, your job can also be an entity. Job ID, job designation, salary. Okay, this can also be an entity. So anything related to which you are storing information in the database, that thing becomes entity. So here, what information I am storing in the database?
Students information.
I am storing students' information. So here, student becomes my entity. So if student becomes my entity in the Java program, wherever I am creating that class student, that class will become my entity class. How it will become my entity class? By using @entity annotation. Now, in the database table, this entity student corresponding to this class, which table exists in my database table? Corresponding to this class, what exists in my database table?
Variables.
But where these variables are present?
Student table.
Student table. Okay. Corresponding to this class, I have a table in the database and the name of the table is student table. That's why now I will mention here @table and I will provide the name of the table. Once you provide the name of the table, your class student.java will be mapped to the database table student. Am I clear to everyone?
Can you explain again?
See, this is my class student. Let me go to the Paint application first. This is my class student, which is present in my Java program. This is my student class. Now, what I am trying to do is, I am trying to perform CRUD operations in the Java program, and I want to see the changes in the database table. The thing which we used to do using JDBC. Same thing what we used to do with JDBC, same thing I want to perform using Hibernate. Now, I'll create the class in the Java program. Once you will perform operations on this student class, where the changes should be saved? The changes should be saved to the database table. For that, I need to establish connection between both of them. My class student should have some corresponding table in the database. That is the reason why I am making this class as entity class. We call it entity class. Any class which you want to map to the database table will be declared as entity. For declaring it as entity, you just have to use the annotation @entity. because we are using JPA. When we are using JPA, we don't have to, write each and everything. Everything has some inbuilt annotations, some inbuilt classes, some inbuilt interfaces are there, methods are there. Just write @entity and this class will be mapped to the database table. Now, to which table it has to be mapped? We need to specify the name of the table because my database will be having multiple tables. See my demo database. These many databases I am having. Okay, these are the databases that I am having. Now, out of all these tables which are present in my demo database, to which table I am mapping that class, I have to specify it. And for specifying it, I am using @table annotation and I will provide the name of the table. If my table name is employee store, I'll write employee store. If my table name is manager store, I'll write there manager store. But my table name is student because I am mapping this student class to that table. Okay, so I will provide table name as student. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now there is one interface called as serializable. Okay, so serializable is basically a separate topic in Java. If you look at what is serializable is, let me show you a diagram. Yes, this diagram is very good. It gives clear understanding of what basically serializable is. So if you want to go in detail, I'll send you the link. But I'll show you through the diagram what happens when you implement serializable interface. So any Java object that you want to map to database object basically has to travel. Okay, it has to communicate with the database. So that object, to make it flow, to make it communicate as a stream of bytes, we use the concept of serializable. So the Java object will be converted to the stream of bytes and then it will be received at the database. To do that, we use serializable. Okay, so it's an interface. It is present in Java. I'm sending you the link. If you want to go in detail, from interview point of view, I don't think that is very important, but you can just have a look what it is. So once we do this implementation of serializable over here, the objects communicate in the form of bytes of streams. That's it. So this is all about the student class and these are the getters and setters. Now, what is the primary key in my database table?
Student ID.
When we were creating the table, what I have kept as the primary key?
Student ID.
Student ID. Now, how to tell the database that which of the column is the primary key column? For that also, we have a separate annotation to inform the Java program that there is one table to which you are connecting, and in this table there are these columns, and out of these columns one of the column is the primary key, and for that you have to use the annotation @ID. So as my student ID is the primary key, we are using @ID for this column. Okay, this is my primary. Now, do you remember what is persistence context? Anyone who can tell me what is persistence context? Who was asking for recordings? You ask for recordings, I send recordings, and then you don't listen to the recordings. What is the point then? Yes, what is entity manager, persistence, context, all these things? Can anybody tell me what is persistence context? Yes.
Persistent context is a memory space where all CURD operations are performed before storing it into the database.
Okay. So every object that you create, okay, whatever object you will create. So in my Java program, if student class is there, we will be creating objects for the student class. So for every object that I am creating, there will be persistence context, some memory location where the CRUD operations are being performed. And each entity manager will be associated with the persistence context. Okay, so for every object, there will be one persistence context, and for every persistence context, there will be associated one entity manager. What that entity manager will do, by the name itself, you can think of what is the role of entity manager. So the role of entity manager is to manage the entity life cycle. It will interact with the persistence context and it will manage the life cycle of the entity. So if we have multiple objects, multiple instances of any entity, for every entity we require one entity manager. And with entity manager, there will be some persistence context where the life cycle of the entity will be managed. Now, who will be generating these entity managers? So there is one entity manager factory which creates entity manager and associates it with the persistence unit. Now, where all this will happen? It will happen in the data access object package. So if you go to data access object package, you see there is one JPA util.java file where we have the entity manager, and for every entity manager that will be created for each instance, there is entity manager factory. And this entity manager factory is responsible for generating this entity manager. So if you don't add these jar files, if you don't add these external jar files, there will be error here. Okay, because entity manager is required for creating the persistence context. Okay, so if you are not clear with the persistence life cycle or what is persistence context, please go back, revise it, because it is very important. And once you do it, here you also have to provide this condition: if entity manager is equal to null, then you have to create one. Create entity manager. You have to call this method, create entity manager. So keep this if block in your code, because sometimes the compiler will show error, entity manager is null. That means for every object that you are creating, where we will create object? In the client entry point of program. So whenever you create object, there will be one entity manager also getting created for this object, so that the life cycle of the object is instantiated. It starts the life cycle. and the object enters the various states before getting saved into the database. So those who are not clear with the previous lectures, okay, please go through persistence life cycle, all of that what we discussed over here, then only things will become clear. Now I told you one more thing, then that whenever you join any company, let's say you join as a fresher, so you will be working in a team and the team will be having some senior managers or someone who is your supervisor, you are working under him, or someone who is in direct touch with the client. Okay, someone who is communicating and understanding the requirements of the clients all the time. So what that person will do is that person will be only creating the interfaces. That person will be only creating the interfaces. Let's say this student data access object interface. So I want my program to add student, okay, add student in the database table. I want my program to retrieve the data, retrieve the student as per the ID from my database table. I want my program to update the student present in the database table, and I want to remove a student from the database table. Why I want to do all these things? Because we are performing CRUD operations. We are performing CRUD operations. So I want to do all these operations, adding, retrieving, updating, and removing. Then I also told you, we begin a transaction, we perform the CRUD operations, and then we end the transaction. All these methods which are supposed to run in your program will be kept in an interface so that later if any new feature gets added, because your senior is interacting with the client, so after 1 month, after 2 months, that client may change the requirements. Whatever requirements have to be added, method will be written in this interface, and that method, all the methods present in this interface, as a fresher or as a subordinate, you have to implement it in this student data access object implementation class. Okay, so this is how things work in IT. There will be one interface having all the abstract methods. Someone who is understanding the requirements will be responsible for adding or removing methods from here, from the interface, and someone will keep implementing it in the actual class, which implements the interface. So here, how many methods do we have? Beginning and committing, and then these four. For all these abstract methods implementation, we have a separate class in the data access object package. And these are the methods: add student, get student, update student, and remove student. Now you remember, I told you that whenever we are using Hibernate, the developer doesn't have to write the SQL queries. Did I mention this?
Yes.
Instead of SQL queries, what the developer has to do, I told you. In JDBC, what we used to do is, we used to write the SQL query. But in Hibernates, we don't do that. Then what we do?
Invoke methods.
We invoke methods. So for CRUD operations, what methods do we have?
Persist.
Update.
Persist.
For CRUD operations, we have 4 methods. For C, we have persist. That means if you want to insert, you have to invoke persist method. So whenever I am adding student, that means I am performing insert operation, right? Am I right?
Yes.
So whenever I am adding, I will invoke persist method. See, I am not writing any SQL queries. That is the reason why even if you migrate from MySQL to SQL Server, if you migrate, there is some changes in the way we write queries in MySQL and the way we write queries on SQL Server. There are differences. But if we are invoking method, then there is no difference. Same way you are invoking it here, same way you are invoking even if you are using SQL Server. That's why we say that when we use Hibernate, we don't have to change much in the code part. So I am using persist method for inserting. For retrieving, which method do I have?
Fine.
We have find method. So here I am retrieving on the basis of ID. That's why we are passing ID also in this method. For updating, which method do I have? Update operation, merge method. And for removing, we have remove method. Okay. And for committing transaction, get transaction dot commit. And for beginning the transaction, get transaction begin. That is same for all the operations. This will remain same. Okay. So this is how we implement CRUD operations in using Hibernate, using JPA. Okay. Now we want to implement abstraction. Okay. What is abstraction? When we don't want to, and when we don't want the end user to uh, be aware of what type of methods we are calling, we want to keep separation. Okay, abstraction means we are trying to hide the complex details and we are not highlighting it, we are just showing the relevant details. So there is a services package. In this services package also, what we will do is we will maintain one interface. In this interface, we will be having abstract methods, add student, find student, update student, remove student, because we don't want the end user to be aware of persist, find, merge, remove, all those things. That's why we are using a different terminology here. And if any interface exists, there will be a class which is implementing that interface. So here we have the class, student service implementation. Now this class will be implementing all the methods, add student, find student, update student, and remove student. So you see, this is very organized. This is not messy. We can see only the relevant things. What we are doing is, we are beginning the transaction, we are performing C operation, that is adding student, and we are committing the transaction. Same we are doing for finding. Same we are doing for updating. Same we are doing for removing. So this is just to provide abstraction to the end user. And for every program, we are keeping one separate entry point. So here also I have one file, client.java, which is the entry point having the main method. And we will be calling each of the methods. Okay, so let's see how we can perform the CRUD operations. Let me make it a comment first. We'll perform this create. Let's say I'm taking Sakshi and I'll run this program. Okay, so let me check in the database table. So we can see that Sakshi has been added. Okay, now let me update it. Update operation. So I am making it comment, else it will again try to insert Sakshi. I am updating Sakshi to Sakshi Yadav. And the student ID I am searching with the help of primary key, and it is 2. So now again we will run the program. And if I go to my database and I'll refresh it, and Sakshi has been updated to Sakshi Yadav. Okay, so what we are doing is we are making changes over here in the Java program, and where we are seeing the results, we are seeing it over here. And we haven't written any SQL query also. In any of the class, we did not write SQL query. We just used the methods. These methods we used. And the method and the way of invoking method will remain same in any platform. That is the reason why when we were discussing about the advantages of ORM, I told you it provides portability. It is what we call it, vendor independent. Okay, that feature is there. So you can perform all other operations as well. Okay, retrieving, deleting, all these operations you can perform, and all the changes will be visible over here.